All right. Shalom, family. It's your brother Kanaiba coming at you once again with this video titled Malcom-Jamal Warner. What did he know? His brief statement about the Messiah. Okay. So, of course, this particular video that I'm doing now is going to be in light of the tragic passing of Mr. Malcom-Jamal Warner. Okay. Now, as we all know him, of course, his most famous role, of course, is on the Cosby Show, where he played Theo, okay, the only son of the Huxtables, right? Theo or Theodore Huxtable, right? Now, what I'm going to do a video based upon a speech that he gave. Now, I don't know where this particular speech was or when it happened, but I came across this particular speech on YouTube, and that particular video was actually taken from TikTok, okay? But it was a speech that he made, and he actually dropped a couple of jewels in that particular speech that he gave, be it knowingly or unknowingly. But he said some stuff, and we're going to go over it, right? I'm not really going to get into the left-handed esoteric stuff that came from his death, in which I do believe that his death was indeed a sacrifice. You know, anytime you hear something like an accidental drowning, or my spidey senses go off. Okay, it's just no. It's too much about this. Just seems like this was a sacrifice. Okay, even Bill Cosby, his reaction to Malcom-Jamal Warner's death. I read where Bill Cosby made the statement that him hearing about Malcom-Jamal Warner's death was reminiscent of when he heard about his own son's death. Okay, Ennis Cosby, and we all know that Bill Cosby's son Ennis was murdered, in which I truly believe that was a sacrifice for Bill Cosby as well. It's just my critique. I could be wrong, but that's just the way I see it. Okay. But the fact that he compared Malcom-Jamal Warner's death to his own son's death, whom we know was murdered, is quite telling to me. Okay. But nevertheless, even when you look at the show that they played on, okay, the Cosby Show, there was a subliminal message there. And let me explain what I mean. When you look at the Cosby Show, this was a black nuclear family, a black upper middle class nuclear family at that. Okay. And it was a very well structured family, something that the elites really want us or society to get away from, us in particular, because we are the focus as Israelites. But here's the subliminal message, okay? You look at the Cosby Show and everything that it represented, right? What was the spinoff of the Cosby Show? Okay, you had the Cosby Show, and then the spinoff was what? A Different World. Okay. Now, on the surface level, two-dimensionally, A Different World was about young adults and how they maneuvered through college life. Okay, that was on the surface level, two-dimensionally, what A Different World was about. But subliminally, three-dimensionally, looking at that, I think it was an underlining message there. Okay, You had the Cosby Show, which represented what a black family should be. And the spinoff is a different world, meaning what? We're a different world, meaning we want to move away from this particular image, that image being the Cosby Show. It's a different world. We want to move away from that. That's the underlying message. That's why I believe, and it's just my critique, but that's why I believe the spinoff was a different world. And if you look at most black television sitcoms from that point, once the Cosby Show went off air, most of those black sitcoms started to go downhill. You had a few that was the last of a dying breed. Okay? And what do I mean by the last of a dying breed? I'm talking about basically a nuclear family that was intact, that had pretty much had structure. Okay? And when I talk about that, I'm talking about you had sitcoms like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, okay, Uncle Phil and his family. You had Family Matters, okay, Carl Winslow and his family. Those are really the only two that came after the Cosby Show that was pretty much represented the same thing almost. Okay. And honestly, if you want to talk about prior to the Cosby Show, you could argue the television series Good Times. Okay, that was a family that was in order, although that they were of the lower class. Okay, they were poor. Okay, they weren't of the same basically economic bracket as the Cosbys or Uncle Phil and his family, the Banks, right? Or the Winslows. Okay. But it was still a family that was in order nonetheless. But again, that's why they had to they got rid of James Evans. They had to kill him off the show. They didn't want that image of a strong black father in the family. Okay. But yeah, I believe that was really the underlying message dealing with the Cosby Show. Okay. You had the Cosby Show and the image that it represented, and the spinoff was a different world. Okay, we want a world that's different from the image that the Cosbys portray. We need a different world. And notice a different world was college based. Okay. Most of look today. Most of these ideologies that push us away from the nuclear family, most of those ideologies are taught in college. And tell me I'm wrong. Okay, that's why I said there was an underlying message with that. Okay, but nevertheless, we got on that topic. I know I'm going on a rant, but yeah, this is what Theo, or not Theo, Malcom-Jamal Warner, that was his most known role, was playing Theo Cosby. Okay. Or Theo, I just said Theo Cosby. Theo Huxtable on the Cosby Show. Okay. But yeah, let me stop rambling. And without further ado, let's actually get into the speech that he made. And we're going to go over it. We're going to get into the scriptures on this one. Okay? So let's get to it.
The art of being black is often an acrobatic act in defending black humanity in a world that worships a pale, long-haired Anglo-Saxon savior, even though the Bible clearly describes him as a bronze-skinned, woolly-haired Hebrew.
See that? He getting right to it, off rip. Okay, we got to talk about what he just said, off rip. Okay. Now, of course, the statement that he just made is basically that we've been taught to worship a pale-skinned, long-haired Anglo-Saxon, in which that's really the only part of that particular statement that I gotta correct. But the Anglo-Saxon part, I'm gonna correct that. But the fact that he said we've been taught to worship a pale-skinned, long-haired Anglo-Saxon, when in fact the Bible describes him as a bronze-skinned, woolly-haired Hebrew. Okay, now what he's referencing is in the book of Revelation. Okay, so let's go there real quick. Let's deal with that. Okay, this is the book of Revelation, chapter 1 and verse 14, and it reads, it says, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. So the first part of this verse says his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. Okay, so this is what Malcom-Jamal Warner was talking about when he said that the Messiah had woolly hair. Okay, this verse is talking about the color and texture of his hair, the hair on his head and on his face. Okay, because according to Torah, Israelite men are commanded to have facial hair, a beard. Okay, you are commanded, if you can grow one, you're commanded to have a beard. Okay, now is it saying that the beard has to be extra long and, down to your belt like the high priest Aaron? No. But if you can grow a beard, have one. Okay, and Yahweh Shai, of course, had one, and it was white and woolly, just like the hair on his head. Okay, this is part of what Malcom-Jamal Warner was talking about. Okay, now let's look at the next verse. Watch this. So this is verse 15, and it reads, it says, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Now, the verse 15 starts by referring to basically his skin color. Okay, it says his feet like unto fine brass. Now, brass is already a derivative of the color brown. Okay, then it goes on to say, as if they burned in a furnace. Now, if you burn anything in a furnace or in a stove, it comes out darker than it was prior to it being put in said furnace or stove. Okay, so the Messiah is a very dark skinned, woolly haired black man. Okay, today he would be classified as a so-called African American, a Negro. Okay, but that's not what we are. We are Hebrew Israelites. Okay, the Messiah, the Mashiach, Yahweh Shai, whom the world knows as Jesus Christ. He is an Israelite from the tribe of Judah. Okay, which is where most American Negroes come from, the same tribe, the tribe of Judah. Okay, so yes, this part of his speech, this is what he's referring to. Okay, but now I want to deal with what he said about the Anglo-Saxons, because the way that he said it, he's saying it, and I don't begrudge him, because most people don't know about the history of Europe. Okay, when you look at the history of Europe, okay, the original Anglo-Saxons, the actual Anglo-Saxons, the original, they were us. They were black people. Okay, most people don't realize that black people, the Israelites, we actually ruled Europe for approximately 1,000 years, starting in the Dark Ages, what's known as the Dark Ages. During that time, we ruled Europe. This is where you get Anglo-Saxons from. Okay, let me explain what I mean. The term or the phrase Anglo-Saxon literally translates to the angelic sons of Isaac. Now, notice this is plural. It says sons with an S, sons, right? When you look at our forefather, the patriarch Isaac, he had two sons. Okay, when you look at him and his wife Rebecca, they had two sons. Now notice, Anglo-Saxons means angelic sons of Isaac. Isaac had two sons. So is this referring to the two sons that he had with Rebecca, or is it something else? Well, let's see. Let's go to the scriptures and let's prove this. Let's take a look at something here. Okay? So this is Romans chapter 9 and verse 10, and it reads, it says, "And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac." So now we're getting into it. We know that Anglo-Saxons literally means angelic sons of Isaac. This is the Isaac it's talking about, okay? So now we're about to read about the sons that Isaac conceived with Rebekah. Okay, let's get right to the point. Let's jump down to verse 13. Watch this. So this is verse 13, and it reads, "As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated." Now these are the two sons that Isaac conceived with Rebekah, Jacob and Esau. Okay, they were twins. Now, of course, not identical. They weren't identical twins, but they were twins nonetheless. Okay. Now, one of the twins, which is Jacob, we see that the Most High Yahweh, he loved Jacob, and still does. Okay. But the other twin, Esau, it says that God hates Esau. Now we're running into a dilemma. Okay, because Anglo-Saxons means angelic sons of Isaac. But here's the dilemma. How can there be anything angelic about Esau if he's hated by God? Okay, even when you read the book of Malachi, when you read the book of Malachi, it talks about Esau and his offspring being what? The border of wickedness. Right? So if him and his offspring is the border of wickedness, how can they be one of the angelic sons of Isaac? Well, let me just break it to you. They're not one of the angelic sons of Isaac. This has nothing to do with Esau. Okay. And of course, when you deal with Esau is the progenitor of what's known today as the Caucasian race. Okay. So Anglo-Saxons cannot be Caucasians. This is where Malcom-Jamal Warner, this is what he didn't understand. Okay. When you deal with Anglo-Saxons or the angelic sons of Isaac, it's referring to Jacob and the 12 sons that Jacob had. Okay. Because when you deal with the 12 sons that Jacob had, this is still offspring of Isaac. They still come from Isaac. So the angelic sons of Isaac is dealing with Jacob and his 12 sons, which make up the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, that you see on the screen right here. Right here, what you're looking at. These are the angelic sons of Isaac, the Anglo-Saxons. Okay, and this is the only point that I really had to correct Mr. Malcolm-Jamal Warner on his speech. Okay, but like I said, I don't really begrudge him because most people don't know this about history. Okay, but anyway, let's get back to his speech.
And revisionist history continues right before our very eyes each time the importance of black lives is denied. What happens to unhealed souls left to linger in bodies that hold on to trauma?
Unhealed souls that linger in bodies that hold on to trauma. Now, he may not understand what he's saying, but what he's saying, he's basically going into the curses that was placed on us for breaking the laws of the Most High. Okay, that's the trauma that he's talking about, that these bodies hold on to. Okay, because we are in bodies of sin. Okay, this is flesh of sin. Okay, and as long as we are in these bodies, okay, these sinful bodies, these curses are going to be on us. Okay, this is the trauma. The trauma is a direct result of the curses of Deuteronomy 28. Okay, in fact, let's get there. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and let's take a look. All right. So this is Deuteronomy 28 and verse 15. And it reads, it says, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Okay, so when Mr. Malcolm-Jamal Warner talked about souls that linger in bodies that hold on to trauma, okay, the Deuteronomy 28 goes into the trauma that these earthly bodies or these fleshly bodies hold on to. Okay, that's what this is going into. Okay, when you read Deuteronomy 28 verses 15 to the end of the chapter, you read about the trauma that Mr. Malcolm-Jamal Warner is referring to. Okay, and that's why I said he may not fully understand what he's talking about, but what he is talking about is a direct result of these curses. Okay, so now let's get back to his speech. Let's see what else he says here.
The immortal imprisoned by mortals who thrive on fear stoked by lies.
Did y'all hear what he just said? Okay, he just said something heavy. Okay, he dropped something here. Okay, now allow me to explain. He said the immortal imprisoned by immortals who thrive on fear stoked by lies. Okay, that was heavy. Allow me to explain. The immortal is in reference to us, the Israelites. Okay. It says imprisoned by mortals. The mortals represent all the other nations of people. Okay. Now, right now, it would chiefly be the children of Edom, Esau. Okay. But the mortals here represents all the other nations of people. The immortal represents us, the Israelites. Okay. Now, let's go to the scriptures. Let me prove what I'm saying, okay? Because Malcolm-Jamal Warner is actually saying a lot of biblical stuff that I don't think he fully grasped that he was saying. Okay, let's go to the scriptures. Let's take a look at something here, okay? So this is 2nd Esdras chapter 2 and verse 45, and it reads, it says, "He answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing and put on the immortal." Allow me to repeat that part. "These be they that have put off the mortal clothing and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of God. Now are they crowned and receive palms. Okay, so when you read this, Esdras is literally getting the same vision that John the Revelator got in Revelation chapter 7. When you read Revelation chapter 7, after the 144,000 are sealed, you read about that great multitude which no man could number, of all nations, kindreds, peoples, and tongues, that stood before the throne, okay, clothed in white with palms in their hands. Okay, this is literally the same thing, okay? Though these are Israelites that's coming out of every nation, kindred, and people and tongue, okay? All you got to do is reference Acts chapter 2, okay? When you read about the day of Pentecost, you read about Jews that was coming out of every nation that came to Jerusalem for the Feast of Pentecost, okay? You have Israelites everywhere, okay? But the point being, this is the same vision, but the point being, when you read this, what's key? It says these people, that great multitude, they put off the mortal clothing and put on the immortal. Again, going back to Malcom-Jamal Warner's speech, he talks about the immortals who was imprisoned by the mortals. Okay. Practically every nation on this planet has had their hand in our captivity. Okay. You can really read about that. What's that in Revelation chapter 11? Okay. How the nations, they were happy. They were merry and happy at basically our downfall. They sent gifts one to another and things of this nature. Well, that's what his speech is really going into. Okay. So we, the Israelites, are the immortals that he referenced in his speech. Okay. Whether he knows it or not. Okay. For example, when you read the book of Jude, you read about the angels that left their first estate. That's again in reference to us. Okay. Hence, we talked about what? The angelic sons of Isaac. We are those angels that left their first estate. Okay. Again, us being in these physical, sinful bodies, that's the chains of darkness that you read about in the book of Jude. We're in this sinful flesh. It's a trap, as the scriptures tell us. Okay. But nevertheless, also, to prove we are those immortals, when you read in the Johannine epistles, okay, when you read First John, I believe chapter 3, you brothers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's chapter 3 and verse 2. It talks about when we see him, we shall be as he is, and see him as he is, roughly paraphrasing. We're going to be as he is and see him as he is. Now, Yahweh Shai already told us when he comes back, he's not coming back as a man, but he's coming back in the glory of his Father. Okay. He's coming back with spiritual power. Yahweh Shai has already put off the mortal and put on the immortal. So if we're going to be as he is, as the Apostle John said, that must mean we're going to be immortals too. We're going to put off the mortal and put on the immortal, like Esdras said. Okay. Makes sense. Okay, so we are the immortals that he's speaking about in his speech, whether he knows it or not. Okay. So now let's get back to the video.
And where do those souls go when the trauma is intergenerational?
Notice he's speaking about intergenerational trauma. Okay, he's saying that trauma is intergenerational. Now, again, this goes right back to Deuteronomy 28. This is dealing with the curses. Okay, the curses of Deuteronomy 28 are intergenerational. Okay, again, like I said, everything he's saying is pretty much biblical in this speech thus far. Okay, but let's go back to Deuteronomy 28 and let's see how these curses are intergenerational. Okay, watch this. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 45. And it reads, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue thee and overtake thee till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. Okay, I want to focus on the first part of this verse. Okay, it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and pursue thee. That's the point. That's the key. It says that these curses would pursue us. This alone is letting us know that these curses are perpetual. Okay, it's not something that would just happen one time and then that's it. These curses are intergenerational. Okay, that's why when you look at each captivity that we've served in the history of our people, each captivity that we served, you see these curses. Okay, it's just here in America, and this is just my belief, my critique, but here in America, the curses are the most prominent out of any captivity we've been in. But these curses have been prevalent in all the other captivities as well. It's just they're more prominent here in America because America is the wickedest, the most wicked of all the captivities that we've served. Okay, but yeah, these curses are intergenerational. That's why it says that these curses would pursue us. Okay, it's something that's nonstop. It's intergenerational. Okay, so let's get back to it. Let's get back to his speech here.
Uninformed race theory critics beget flag-waving parents professing patriotism who prefer their children pretend to be as blind to color as we purport Lady Liberty to be to justice. But she needs glasses so America can see how easy it is to be so indifferent to slavery when it's viewed solely as black history. But the holy truth is, slavery is white history too.
Yep, exactly. And this is the history that America wants us to move away from. They want to hide it. Okay. Dealing with basically how this particular country was established. Okay. This country was built on the slavery or the enslavement of our people, the children of Israel. Okay. And all the horrific things that we went through in the establishing of this country by way of slavery. They want to hide that. They want to act like it never happened. They want us to actually forget it happened. They want us to forgive and forget and move on without them going through any type of repercussions for their actions. And this is also the insanity of Christianity. This is why we always say Christianity and slavery, it goes hand in hand. Because in Christianity, they're teaching the same things. Forgive and forget and let your oppressors just get off scot-free. That's insanity. Okay. But again, even with Donald Trump and his administration, the whole MAGA make America great again, that goes into this, as if America was ever a great place to begin with. It wasn't, not for us. Okay, so everything the brother is saying right here is really on point. Okay, and I actually enjoyed this speech. I don't know if it was the whole thing, but this particular snippet of his speech, I enjoyed it. You know, he said a lot. Okay, but anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this video. And again, the title of the video is Malcom-Jamal Warner. What did he know? His brief statement about the Messiah. Okay. So, of course, like I said, this video was in light of Malcom-Jamal Warner and his passing. And as soon as I stumbled across the video of his speech, the Spirit came on me to do a video about that speech. Okay, and he said a lot. Like I said, he dropped a lot of jewels in there. Okay, biblical. And whether he knew it or not, he was saying a lot of stuff that was really biblical. And that's why we had to go into it. Okay. But yeah. Now again, like I said, do I believe his death was sacrificial? Absolutely. Okay. But that's just my critique. I could be wrong. Okay. And if I do my research and find, ironclad evidence, most likely I'll do a video about that, about the left-handed side of this situation. But I really wanted to touch on this speech, okay, because I really enjoyed this speech. Okay. So with that, and as always, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, which is the name of the Heavenly Father, and I do so by Hashem, which means in the name of Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the only begotten Son of the Heavenly Father, whom the world knows as Jesus Christ. And I want to thank all you brothers and sisters for tuning in. I hope this video was informative and edifying. And until next time, Shalom, family.